Hello, my name is Jamie, and this is Supplier T News. This is your small business news for August 13th, 2021. Today, we're going to be talking about the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that was just signed off by the Senate and moving towards the House and how that can affect your business. And then also, we will be discussing the recent census population release for the United States, and talk about what that could mean for your business as well. As always, if you like the content we provide, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment, and share with other people you think may be interested in this content. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First up, the Senate passes $1 trillion infrastructure bill. Here's what it means. So this is a pretty good article because it really walks you through kind of everything point by point in terms of what you're getting. So I'm just going to kind of go to the highlights just so that you can see. But what does the Senate's infrastructure bill include? So there's a ton of things, estimates. I've reported this previously last week about how the Biden administration is saying around 2 million jobs per year over the course of the decade will be created. But the main focus here is kind of where that money's going and what we could see being built and opportunities for small businesses. Number one, public transit, airports, and rail, including money for mass transit, passenger and freight, rail, airports, and waterways, roads and bridges, which is going to be a really big focus in my opinion. Electric vehicles, including money to construct a network of electric vehicle chargers and electrify school and transit buses. This is going to be pretty interesting. I was recently staying in an apartment, and it was a lot of cars that could have benefited from that, but there was only a few places where you could actually charge a car. So to see that more is going to be really interesting and really expand kind of those hybrid vehicles for sure. Water, sewer, power systems, and environmental remediation, including funding to replace the nation's lead pipe service lines and improve its power grid, obviously can help. And the big piece here is, in my opinion, broadband. The deal includes $65 billion to improve the country's broadband system. The plan originally proposed $100 billion to provide accessible high-speed internet service. I honestly wanted that to be higher. I thought that was going to end up being higher. We need that. High-speed internet service. I've been in locations where this internet has been not the best, and it can be better. So to see that cut did kind of hurt my soul a little bit, but regardless, they did push some things through. Now, one of the things that was interesting that was brought up in this article is that kind of this idea of human infrastructure. So as you can see here, after passing the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package, the Senate approved the blueprint for a $3.5 trillion budget resolution. So we have two different pieces going on here. So about $550 billion is the piece that Democrats were able to get Republicans to support. However, through reconciliation, which is way too complex for me to explain here, they're going to try to further the bill to include other pieces, such as the human infrastructure, as you can see, again, through budget reconciliation, so that they can increase this piece. Now, if they could just do budget reconciliation, why didn't they just do that in the first place? This is more so, this is where politics gets involved, right? They wanted to do something to where they could get Republican support on. If you recall, initially, I believe the first budget may have been, or the idea was like about 5 trillion, maybe. I could be wrong about that. 5-6 trillion, maybe I'm wrong. But so to see the fact that kind of come down a little bit and they're looking to still push forward and include Republicans where they can. I mean, hey, I think that's commendable, to try to get support where you can, and then the other piece, if you can't, then you got to go it alone. Both sides do it. We saw it with the Trump tax cuts. Republicans kind of doing that as well. If you can't get support, you got to do it on your own, but get support where you can. The Trump tax cuts versus kind of when the Trump administration really pushed for the justice system piece, where they were releasing people with like nonviolent crimes, so which they did get support for Democrats for, and so you do what you can on both sides. So for the human infrastructure, there are going to be 4 key areas Senate Democrats are focusing on. It's going to be families and education. Now this is really big. Fund universal preschool with a new child care benefit for families. Now, the reason why I say, as well as child tax credits, but the reason why I say this is what you'll see when we get into the census portion is that, and this is something that we've kind of already known, but less children are being born. So the adult percentage actually increased over the past 10 years versus the child uh, portion of it. And what we're seeing is that people are just having less and less. While our population is increasing because we're a heavily immigrant state, the birth rate is down. So getting people to have kids, in my opinion, is necessary. And offering, it may come to a point where you're going to have to offer these type of credits in order to convince people to have children, because we have so much things such like college debt and things, which I believe like 30% of Americans, 35% of Americans have it, but it's still the most in terms of debt, which is amazing. Next up, climate. If you're a big proponent of that, the Democrats are going to work to meet administration's goal for the U.S. to get 80% of its power from emissions-free sources by 2030. Infrastructure, so funding like public housing, more so looking at sustainability. That's really what they're trying to push towards. And then obviously healthcare, which Republicans have made it clear they'll never support. So their Democrats are going to try to expand on that. I do have my thoughts on that. I'm not really into politics, but I do just want to give this piece. Like, at some point, we have to get over this repeal and replace Obamacare piece. I think they had 3 opportunities to do that over the past 10 years to repeal and replace, and every time they failed. Like, at this point, if you don't want to do if you don't want to support Democrats on healthcare, fine, but come with a new solution that you all can get behind. And if you don't have that solution, then figure out how you can support and where you can support the idea that is in place. And that's just in my humble opinion, because what you didn't work, and you didn't have any solutions for that. And I don't know, for me, that's just a little, don't get into politics a lot, but like, that's just really frustrating, seeing somebody say, don't do this. And it's like, okay, well, what's your idea for something better? It's like, well, we don't have anything, but don't do that. Like, come on. It's already in place. It's already law. Like, we got to come up with something better. I could understand if it wasn't. I'm just getting on a tangent here. Let me get back to this piece. So there are some suggestions when will the 2 bills become law. So the broader spending plan, congressional committees have been directed to craft the pieces of the Democrats' bill by September 15th. But I think I saw somewhere like basically by the end of the year, they're looking to try to pass this piece. The House comes back August 23rd, so next week. So that's when they're going to begin to deliberate the Senate's proposal, and then they'll kind of go from there. Okay. After that, so what else could you potentially see coming up? So number one, I'm going to kind of start from the bottom here. Student loan cancellation. So there hasn't been any talk on that yet, but President Biden did extend the pause on student loans until January 21st, 2020. We'll see what happens with that, because a lot of people are coming back to work now. Next up, minimum wage hike. I have my thoughts on this as well, but currently the minimum wage is $7.25. There isn't really any consensus on what they want to increase that. The Biden administration does want to increase federal government contractors to $15 an hour, I should say. But in terms of like different states, that's always going to be tricky, trying to get that type of support. And then the stimulus payment. As of right now, there is no talk about there being an additional stimulus piece. So again, people are going back to work, so I would recommend not holding out hope for that. So that's kind of what government is kind of planning in terms of support. It's all going to be about infrastructure the next couple of years. Looks like the Biden administration will get this passed with support on both sides. So congratulations to them. We'll see how it goes. And again, I talked about this prior, but I'll say this again. Small businesses, this is going to be a huge opportunity for you. Based off of the estimates, it's probably going to take about 2 to 3 years for it to like start to begin. As they're coming up with, they're kind of like writing out how they're going to construct these roads and bridges and broadband and whatnot, and then after that you're going to actually see the construction start. So get your bids in now, get your networking in now. It's a great opportunity, great time to kind of get your foot in the door and make sure that you're a part of this. All right, next up, let's talk about the census. So census came out this week from based on the 2020 results. Really a lot of information here. Don't really know how I want to tackle this per se, but we'll start kind of from the top in terms of what was given back, right? The big piece here is the white non-Hispanic population without another race decreased by 8.6% since 2010. So as of right now, 2020, based on the 2020 census, the U.S. is now 57.8% white, 18.7% Hispanic, 12.4% black, and 6% Asian. there's a caveat here, which is without another race, right? What the biggest the biggest jump in the census is people that are identifying with multiple races. I believe it jumped 3 times versus what it was before, which is huge. And it's actually, so right now, white non-Hispanic is the most population. The second most would be Hispanic. And then the third most now is people who identify with multiple races, which is very interesting. Then it's black, then it's Asian. So very interesting, kind of how that has now really changed. Census expanded your ability to identify with multiple races, and people definitely took advantage of it. So that's pretty interesting, if you ask me. So as you can see here, in 2020, 33 million people reported being more than one race versus 9 million in 2010. It's going to be interesting to kind of see how they move forward with that. If there's going to be a push to say, hey, just identify with one race, or versus, hey, identify with as many as you can. It's going to be interesting how like the political aspect of that comes to fruition. But regardless, what we have here is just kind of a race index, like percentage wise, where we have the most kind of diversity, if you will. So as you can see here, race and ethnicity diversity index. So basically, what this is what is the likelihood if you pick 2 people in the state, they're going to be of different races. So as you can see here, at a national level, there is now a 61.1% chance that 2 people chosen at random in a given area would be different racial ethnicities, which is really interesting. And I mean, I think we can kind of know and expect this with these kind of states and whatnot. But, again, just pretty interesting. They kind of break down how they do it, how you can separate ethnicity from race now. And kind of move towards that. So very, very interesting information if you want to take a look at this. Moving forward, where is it? So CNN actually did a really in-depth piece. If you want to take a look at this, I would actually recommend this to kind of go through. I know people CNN, blah, 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 but for this, they do a really good job. So again, they give you the chart in terms of kind of how the breakdown is for every piece, kind of how you can see it moving from 2010 to 2020. So really, just at a glance, you can really understand what's going on here. Share white population has decreased in many states, as we kind of just spoke about. And then it kind of just goes through every piece and breaks it down. In addition to kind of the states, the cities and how they've grown. Another big piece that should be noted is that, let me make sure that I say this right. The amount of people that move to cities, which is around, I believe it's 8%, actually is more than the population growth over 10 years, which was about 7.6%, I believe. The thing about that, over the past 10 years, our growth rate has been the smallest it's ever been since the 1930s, during the Great Depression. So, or I'm sorry, right after the Great Depression. So it's pretty, 1920s to 1930, I believe, or I'm sorry, or it might be 1930 to 1940. Yeah, here it is. It's the slowest population growth since 1930 to 1940, the decade of the Great Depression. So, as you can see here, and again, as I said, population to metro areas grew to 8.7% versus 7.3%. I apologize. I said 7.6. So, pretty interesting in terms of that piece. Now, what does this mean? If we go down further, there are some political aspects of this. Obviously, the states that dropped off or that decreased with their population did lose a House seat versus states that did get more population. Their House seats increased. Now, this is very interesting because in a lot of majority seats are run by, if you care about this, majority of states, I should say, are run by Republicans. So you are going to see like 60-70% of states as they redistrict. Essentially, Republicans will have the majority say in that, which people are, or I mean, we don't have to beat around the bush here. It's going to be gerrymandered in favor of whoever the political party in power, how they do it. So that's going to be, obviously, that's always unfortunate. House should always reflect the population as a whole. So only time will tell to see how that goes. I mean, with that being said, it's what do you do when you have people from, you know, quote unquote blue states or Democrat states that are moving in bunches to red states or Republican states, right? That is what kind of comes with that. So it's interesting. Again, there's a lot of pieces and theories around why that is, and and you know which policies work, which, you know, we could sit here for years and kind of discuss that. But just interesting in terms of the population, kind of how the movement goes, and because of that, you know, one side's benefiting, even though the people that are moving there may not report or agree with those, you know, policies. So pretty interesting. But long story short, I've been kind of like going on here, but that's kind of the piece when it comes to the census. America is getting more diverse. Our adult population is increasing, and our child population is decreasing, unfortunately. So the birth rates do need to increase to continue this. And then a lot more people are just moving into metro areas versus rural areas. And because of that, we're seeing more people moving towards historically red states versus historically blue states. So, and when I say red, I mean like west and southwest, west, southwest, and south versus Midwest and East Coast. So, you know, pretty interesting. Thought that, you know, you would like to hear this, and hopefully this was, you know, educational and informative. So, have any questions? Definitely let me know. Leave a comment, share, like the video, and always subscribe to the channel if you like the content. All right. With that being said, thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.